First, we're going to take a look at our make-believe patient, Luther Muscle, a 83-year-old black male with type 2 diabetes, and we're going to see how the algorithms are going to direct us. So let's take a look at the diabetes algorithm here, and it's going to show us currently the medications are Actos, Januvia, and metformin. We verify that, pharmacist that's managing the case, but we see that his A1C is 9.6, and we're hoping to get closer to 6, as our goal shows down here. But his creatinine is 1.7, and the first thing it tells us is due to renal impairment, metformin must be discontinued. So the first thing we do is discontinue the metformin. However, with an A1C of 9.6, oral agents are not going to be effective. So we choose to initiate a basal bolus insulin therapy protocol. So they'll start Atlantis, 20 units per day, titrate once weekly by 8 units until his morning sugars are approximately 110 or less for 3 consecutive days. And we've discontinued all his oral medications, as the note says. And then we add and initiate a rapid-acting insulin, one of these 3, depending on what the formulary allows from the pharmacy benefit manager, and we use a sliding scale. And if there was any mixed insulin involved in the treatment, it would warn you to remove that. So we initiate that, and then a month later, you come back and you say, well, what was the blood sugar? And you'd say, well, it was 222 was the average fasting. They've been on insulin for a month. And then the next add-in would be one of these 2 types of drugs. And so if we added Simlin and amylin mimetic, we'd say initiate 60 micrograms of Simlin. And then at the end of another 30 days of being on it, you could adjust it to 120. And that's one way to look at treating his diabetes. However, if his biomarkers and lab values were different, let's say the A1C was only 8.0, and let's say he did have congestive heart failure, and he wasn't taking insulin, and then you'd say, okay, and let's say his creatinine wasn't 1.0 or 1.7, but it was 1.1. And then it would say, due to the reported presence of congestive heart failure, Actos must be discontinued. So we discontinue the Actos, and then we titrate up the metformin, which already has been, to 2 grams. We follow that titration. But the Januvia was too low of a dose because he had normal creatinine, and you can see if it's less than 1.5, he should be on 100 milligrams, and here he was only on 50. So we would continue the therapy, but we would make the adjustment, and then the next 2 drugs that we could add in, because we took away the Actos and it was still high, would be Salfolate and Welcol. And so those are the ways to use the algorithm. So you'd say to yourself, okay, how did we get this information? And also, who are we sharing the information to? So now we've decided what we're going to do. Now let's see if we decided to do a new visit, and we went into new visits, and we would put in the background information, and you can see that, let's say his weight was 180 and his blood pressure was 150 over 60. And then you can see these are his medical conditions. He has high cholesterol, congestive heart failure, hypertension, type 2 diabetes. He has kidney disease and kidney failure, So we take a look at all that. That's his background. And then we go to put in a note, and we click on template for diabetes. And we come in here, and we see that we put in what the blood pressure would be, that it was elevated, and then what decision we would be making for that. If we were, let's come down, and let's say we were just doing the A1C is not at goal, it's elevated at 8.0, and his blood sugar range average in the morning was 222. The decision was to add the following medications and adjust Januvia to 100 milligrams and add Nicol 2 tabs 3 times a day, and Sal8 750 milligrams 2 tabs twice a day. And then you would say, okay, we'd saved it, but we want to export that information. Now, who needs that? It's the doctor and the patient. So you click on that, and then you'd be able to export this information both to the physician and to the patient. If the doctor wanted to look at it, all they would have to do would be to take a look for within the operability activity. They could log into ICG. They could export the notes themselves in PDF, HL7, or CCDA form and import them into their own EMR. Or finally, CeutiCare can export the note into the provider's preferred format and send them securely to the provider for import. So those are the important pieces for this process. And then you would save your note and close the interaction. You do the same thing for blood pressure, and you do the same thing for cholesterol.